What the Defiant sensors detected instead was a gathering of 5 separate alien fleets, each representing a different major power in the galactic community. The 5 admirals commanding these fleets were among the most respected military minds in known space. Admiral Vortok of the Devan Empire, Admiral Shura of the Sarith Collective, Admiral Chen of the Coalition of Ancient Worlds, Admiral Sovic of the Valorian Hegemony, Admiral Kale of the Valerian Directorate. 5 admirals, 5 fleets, 1 coordinated objective: to prevent human expansion into the sector designated as the Kepler Region. The 5 admirals had coordinated their forces to create an overwhelming military presence. Together, their combined fleets numbered 3,847 capital ships. The human force in the region numbered 47 ships. The disparity was so vast that the 5 admirals found the situation almost amusing. When they detected the arrival of the Defiant, they opened a coordinated communication channel and transmitted a message to the human vessel. The message was dismissive. The mocking Admiral Vortok opened the communication with contempt. "What is this pathetic human vessel doing in Kepler space? You are outnumbered 80 to 1. You are outgunned 300 to 1. You are facing 5 of the greatest military minds in the galaxy. What possessed your command to send a single cruiser into this region?" Admiral Shura joined the mockery. The humans have apparently learned nothing about galactic military reality. They believe that a single ship can negotiate with 5 coordinated fleets. How amusing. Admiral Chen added his voice. "I have faced human forces before. I have always found them predictable, primitive, desperate. This ship is no exception. It is a final gesture of defiance from a species that has already lost." The 5 admirals continued their mocking commentary, broadcasting on all frequencies so that their own crews and the human vessel could hear the contempt with which they regarded humanity's presence. Admiral Sovic concluded with a decisive statement. "You have one option: withdraw immediately from Kepler space. If you do so, your ship will be allowed to leave. If you refuse, your vessel will be destroyed, and your crew will serve as an example of what happens when humans challenge the assembled might of the 5 greatest powers in the galaxy." The communication ended with finality. The expectation among the 5 admirals was clear. The human cruiser would immediately begin retreat procedures. What happened instead was something none of them anticipated. The response Captain James Mitchell of the HMS Defiant received the mocking transmission and made a decision that would change everything. Rather than responding with fear or defensiveness, Mitchell responded with a message that was calm, measured, and absolutely confident. "This is Captain James Mitchell of the human cruiser HMS Defiant. I have received your ultimatum. I am rejecting it. I am maintaining my position in Kepler space. And I am extending an invitation. If you wish to test human military capability, I welcome the opportunity." The message was remarkable for its absolute lack of fear in the face of overwhelming odds. The 5 admirals stared at the communication in disbelief. Did that human captain just challenge us? Admiral Sovic asked incredulously. "The captain apparently does not understand the military situation," Admiral Kale observed. "A single ship against 3,847 warships. The human must be insane." But something about Mitchell's tone troubled them. There was no desperation in the message. There was no fear. There was only calm confidence. Admiral Vortok made a decision. "Send a probe toward the human vessel. Let us verify its actual military capability." The captain's confidence seems inconsistent with the reality of the situation. The probe, a single Devan probe, equipped with advanced sensors and equipped to resist most weapons fire, moved toward the HMS Defiant. The 5 admirals watched the probe approach. They expected to gather data confirming that the human ship was a conventional warship with limited capability. What they got instead was something completely unexpected. The moment the probe reached a distance of 5,000 meters from the Defiant, every sensor on the probe suddenly went dark. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Simply offline. The probe continued to drift toward the human ship, now completely blind. The 5 admirals exchanged confused messages among themselves. "What happened to our probe?" Admiral Shura demanded. "Unknown," Vortok replied. "The probe systems are offline. The ship itself appears intact." Captain Mitchell's voice came through the communication channel again. "You sent a probe to gather information about my vessel. The probe has been neutralized using electronic countermeasures. I am giving you a final warning. Withdraw your fleets from Kepler space immediately, or I will implement more aggressive defensive measures." The 5 admirals stared at the situation in disbelief. A single human cruiser had just disabled a probe from one of the greatest military powers in the galaxy. The human captain was extending an ultimatum to 5 assembled fleets. The The situation had become inexplicable. Admiral Chen made a decision. Prepare all fleets for combat. We will destroy this human vessel immediately. I will not allow a single ship to continue mocking us. The darkness, the order to attack came from all 5 admirals simultaneously. The combined fleet of 3,847 warships began to move into attack formation. Weapons systems powered up. Targeting computers locked onto the HMS Defiant. The 5 admirals had expected the engagement to last perhaps 30 seconds. A single human cruiser against 3,847 warships would be annihilated in moments. Then everything went dark. At precisely the moment the fleets began their coordinated attack, every system on every vessel in the 5-admiral fleet went offline simultaneously. The lights went dark. The propulsion systems went dark. The weapons systems went dark. The communication systems went dark. The life support systems went dark. 3,847 warships, suddenly completely powerless. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Simply offline. The 5 admirals found themselves in complete darkness, on completely powerless vessels, surrounded by thousands of similarly powerless ships. The realization for several minutes, there was absolute silence among the 5 fleets. The admirals, sitting in darkened command centers, gradually began to understand what had occurred. Captain Mitchell's warning had not been a desperate gesture. It had been a statement of capability. The human cruiser, vastly outnumbered and outgunned, had not relied on conventional military superiority. Instead, the Defiant had employed something far more devastating. It had neutralized every single ship in the 5-admiral fleet without firing a single weapon. It had done this through a coordinated electronic warfare operation so sophisticated that none of the admirals could even comprehend how it had been executed. Admiral Vortok, sitting in darkness aboard his flagship, made a single observation. We have severely miscalculated. The restoration after exactly 10 minutes of complete darkness, every system on every ship in the 5-admiral fleet came back online simultaneously. The lights returned. The propulsion systems returned. The weapons systems returned. The communication systems returned. But there was one crucial difference. None of the systems were responsive to the admiral's commands. The fleets were completely under external control. Captain Mitchell's voice came through the communication channel. I have assumed command of your 5 fleets. Your vessels are currently locked in a configuration that prevents any hostile action against human space. You have violated the territorial integrity of the Kepler region. You have threatened human vessels. You have left me no choice but to implement this measure. The 5 admirals stared at the impossible reality of the situation. Their fleets, their pride, their most advanced military assets, all of them were now under control of a single human cruiser captain. The negotiation Captain Mitchell extended one final message to the 5 admirals. I am offering you a choice. Option 1. I release control of your fleets, and you withdraw immediately from human space. Option 2. Your fleets remain under my command until the Galactic Council can establish a hearing regarding your actions. Admiral Chen, recognizing the reality of the situation, transmitted the response that all 5 admirals had come to accept. We withdraw. Immediately. With apologies for our miscalculation. The 5 fleets, under Mitchell's control, began their systematic withdrawal from Kepler space. As they departed, the HMS Defiant released control of their systems. The admirals regained command of their vessels just as they reached the outer boundaries of the region. The investigation, the revelation that a single human cruiser had disabled and assumed control of a combined fleet of 3,847 warships triggered shockwaves across the galactic community. The Galactic Council immediately initiated an investigation into what technology the human ship possessed that allowed it to disable so many vessels, how a single cruiser could maintain control of 3,847 ships simultaneously, why the 5 admirals had allowed this situation to develop. What they discovered was something that transformed how the entire galaxy understood military capability. The HMS Defiant did not carry revolutionary weapons. The HMS Defiant carried something far more sophisticated, a cybernetic warfare system so advanced that it could penetrate and assume control of any military network in known space. The system had been developed in secret over 50 years. The system had been tested extensively. The system had been held as humanity's ultimate deterrent against overwhelming force. And now, through a single display of capability, the system had demonstrated that it could neutralize any military threat that relied on electronic coordination. The strategic philosophy, when questioned about the Defiant's capability, Captain Mitchell provided an explanation that revealed humanity's strategic vision. The 5 admirals mocked us because they assumed that military power was measured by the number of ships you possessed. The 5 admirals believed that overwhelming numerical superiority guaranteed victory. The five admirals never considered that a civilization could develop capabilities that rendered numerical advantage irrelevant. Mitchell continued with words that explained the fundamental principle. Humanity understood that we would never match the five admirals in conventional military terms. We understood that 47 ships could never defeat 3,847 ships in a traditional battle. So we developed something different. We developed the ability to neutralize the electronic systems that coordinated those 3,847 ships. We learned that the greatest vulnerability in modern military forces is not weapons, but the systems that coordinate those weapons. The broader implications: the revelation of the HMS Defiant's capability forced every military power in the galaxy to reconsider their entire approach to warfare. If a single ship could disable thousands through electronic warfare, then numerical advantage became a liability instead of an asset. If a civilization could penetrate and control enemy systems without firing a shot, then the number of ships you possess mattered far less than the quality of your defensive cybersecurity. The five admirals, who had believed themselves invulnerable due to overwhelming force, had instead been completely vulnerable to a threat they had not anticipated. The five admirals, reckoning the five admirals, humiliated by their defeat, requested a meeting with Captain Mitchell to understand what had transpired. Mitchell agreed to the meeting and explained, in detail, how the HMS Defiant had achieved the neutralization. What the five admirals gradually came to understand was that they had been systematically studied. Humanity had analyzed their defensive systems, their communication protocols, their tactical doctrines. Humanity had identified the vulnerabilities and had developed weapons specifically designed to exploit those vulnerabilities. The five admirals had not been defeated by superior force. They had been defeated by superior preparation. Admiral Vortok, after hearing the full explanation, made a statement that would be remembered throughout galactic history. We came to humiliate a primitive species. We came expecting an easy victory. We came believing that superior numbers guaranteed superiority. What we learned instead was that numerical superiority is meaningless against an opponent who understands your vulnerabilities. What we learned was that we are not as powerful as we believed ourselves to be. The transformation, the revelation that the HMS Defiant could neutralize 3,847 warships without firing a conventional weapon, transformed how the galaxy understood military superiority. The five admirals' fleets, despite their size and power, were revealed as vulnerable to electronic warfare. Other military forces across the galaxy suddenly recognized their own vulnerabilities. Every navy began examining their defensive systems. Every military organization began investing in cybersecurity. The balance of power in the galaxy shifted not through war, but through the recognition that military power could be neutralized through systems you never fired at. The monument, 500 years after the HMS Defiant's demonstration of capability, a monument was constructed in Kepler space at the location where the encounter had occurred. The monument was not dedicated to military victory. The monument was dedicated to the transformation of how military power was understood. The inscription read, "Here, five admirals commanding 3,847 warships mocked a single human cruiser. Here, the cruiser neutralized the entire fleet without firing a single weapon. Here, the galaxy learned that military power is not measured by the number of ships you possess, but by the vulnerability of the systems that coordinate those ships." This monument commemorates the moment when military science transformed forever. Captain Mitchell's reflection in his final address before retirement. Captain Mitchell reflected on the confrontation with the five admirals. The five admirals mocked us because they did not understand what we had learned. They believed that military superiority was a simple equation. More ships equal more power. They did not understand that modern military capability depends on electronic coordination, and electronic coordination has vulnerabilities. Mitchell continued with insight into humanity's strategic philosophy. We studied the five admirals for years. We analyzed their systems. We identified their weaknesses. We developed the capability to exploit those weaknesses. And we waited for the moment when they would test us. When they did, we were ready. We did not fight them with weapons. We fought them with knowledge. He concluded with a statement about the nature of true military power. The greatest military advantage is not superior weapons or superior numbers. The greatest advantage is superior understanding of your enemy's vulnerabilities. By the time the five admirals recognized their vulnerability, it was too late. Their fleets were already under my control. They had already lost a war they had not realized they were fighting. The continuing legacy 1,000 years after the HMS Defiant's demonstration, every military force in the galaxy operated under the principle that electronic warfare was as important as kinetic weapons. Every admiral understood that a ship's defensive systems were as important as its offensive weapons. Every military strategist recognized that vulnerability to electronic warfare was a critical weakness that had to be addressed. The five admirals, who had mocked a single human cruiser, had inadvertently transformed galactic military science forever.